You know how great your house looks and smells when it's just been cleaned? So fresh. And somehow, a clean house makes your head feel fresher too. With a housekeeper from Care, you can reset your house and your head as often as you like for less than you think. Find a great housekeeper, set a schedule that works for you, and check cleaning off your to-do list so you can put your mind to other, more fun things. Get the housekeeping help you need at Care.com.
This podcast of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs is sponsored by AAA Heating and Air.
The premier HVAC company in the Midlands is growing. Are you a top HVAC technician?
AAA Heating and Air is looking for dedicated applicants to fill their fast-growing service department with top-notch HVAC technicians.
If you're the best, then they want you. If you're ready to stop working and start a career, you can earn up to $100,000 plus a year at AAA Heating and Air.
Quality candidates will have at least 2 years experience and a good driving record. Benefits include top industry salaries, commission on service and unit sales, set call limits, company-provided take-home vehicle and gas card, company-provided cell phone and tablet, health, dental, and vision benefits, 401k retirement plan with company match, and scaled PTO based on length of service.
Contact Roy and Dana Finley at 803-677-1500 or check out their job postings on Facebook or ZipRecruiter.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, founded by firemen with Chris Clark.
The 2007 South Carolina class was, at that time, 6th in the country and 4th in the SEC, which is amazing.
Wes Mitchell.
You know, I think if you're South Carolina, you're aiming to at least be at 50%. Then in theory, you're adding talent, you're getting better, you're putting yourself in a position to compete.
And Tyler Head.
It's been a great week for South Carolina. On the recruiting front, still certainly plenty to talk about.
On the home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
And welcome into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, Wes, and Chris, all in studio today. That's right, the entire crew back in here. Well, at least kind of. I can see Chris.
It's been a while.
I know Wes is out in the bullpen somewhere.
Good terminology, given, baseball season ending. Wes is getting, I hope, a detailed explanation from the legend Tommy Moody on the first base call from the other day.
Well, you think? According to my conversation with Tommy a few minutes ago, he still hasn't gotten a full explanation on that. That was a weird situation, and it's not obviously the only reason South Carolina lost Game 1 on Friday night. But when you talk about a one-run game, having a guy get taken off the base path in that manner, who knows what could have happened?
Yeah, let me start this little diatribe that I'm going to go on by saying, going into the weekend, I told anybody that I spoke with, I think this is going to be a hard series for South Carolina to win.
Sure.
It was at Florida. I thought Florida is playing better, came out of the losers bracket to advance. They were the better team in those two games, both of them.
Yep.
Especially game 2. So I don't want to give the impression that blaming the umpiring in the game. But what I will say is I think this series illustrated, and there are other examples throughout college baseball, because we've talked about this before, it's a shame that a lot of the talking points coming out of close games are frequently about the umpires. So there have been several notable examples of this in college baseball. And when you look back at the games this weekend, it was a talking point. It is not the reason that South Carolina lost the series, right? But it was two teams who were pretty closely matched, right? Especially in game 1, who were leaving it all out there. Two high-level baseball teams. And the reality of it is that South Carolina did not make as many plays as Florida. Florida deserves full credit for what they did. But there's also part of that reality was there's some very questionable things. I mean, even Florida, like Nick De La Torre, who covers Florida for On 3, he's at all their baseball games all year. He covered this series, and he even issued a tweet during one of the games. I have no idea what a strike is. Neither does Florida. Neither does South Carolina, right? And whether it's the Wimmer play, the strike zone, I don't think there was some conspiracy during the game I think they just didn't know what a strike was, unless it was blatantly obvious.
Sure. Yeah,
you just had no clue.
There were some that went straight down Broadway that got called balls. I was confused as well.
I was going to say unless it was blatantly obvious, but even when
there were some that were blatantly obvious, and I don't know.
And,
like, I'm not going to pretend like being an umpire is an easy job because it's not, especially
difficult
in a hostile environment of a super regional. But yeah, there are some things that you shouldn't have trouble calling, and a strike right down the middle shouldn't be an issue.
When you look at, so I actually went back and looked, and there's a history of Greg Street, the home plate umpire who was at first for the Braylon Wimmer play.
Yep.
And then was behind the plate for game 2. And this was in 2017, y'all. So Aaron Fitt, who is not a Twitter egg saying this, he is a highly respected
from D1
college baseball writer from D1 Baseball. In June of 2017, the word from multiple people in SEC country is that Greg Street is a nice man and a very inconsistent home plate umpire. Just awful today. This was in 2017 from Aaron Fitt. And the reason that the context of that is Oregon State was eliminated in the College World Series by LSU. And Greg Street had I'm looking at a picture right now. I can't show you this. This is literally in the batter's box, this pitch. And he called it a strike and rang up somebody. And Oregon State fans were so mad that one of them who lived in North Carolina went to the ACC tournament the next year and made signs and yelled at Greg Street. I'm not advocating anybody do that, right? But this just shows there is a track record.
It's been an issue for a while.
It's been an issue, and this is somebody officiating one of the most important college baseball games of the year.
Right.
And it was just tarnished, frankly. Now maybe Florida wins both games. They probably do.
Sure.
Right? But what if in that game 1? Is it Wes?
I'm just laughing at the callback to a Twitter egg.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard anybody use that in a while.
Yeah.
So Twitter, is it still are you even allowed to have a Twitter egg
I don't
anymore?
know if you have an egg or not.
I think you still get that.
Twitter egg is if you don't put a profile picture, right?
Yeah, I should have given.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that. That was
little inside baseball with Twitter. I like it.
But I mean, it's just kind of Florida might go on to win the series. But what if?
I mean, all right. AI is going to take all of our jobs eventually anyway, so why should the umps be any different? Like, bring on the robo umps. Not that it would fix the call on the base paths, but when there are pitches that are too good, in other words, they're like hung. If it's a hanging curveball and you're going, oh, they're about to hit that ball to the moon,
yeah,
and it still doesn't get called a strike, that's when we have a problem. And this is like loser talk, I get it, but I really don't feel like Florida was the better team on Friday. They were clearly the better team on Saturday. Now, the better team in baseball can be a dominant pitcher performance. I mean,
we saw
they just outpitched South Carolina, and that was because Waldrop wasn't good. He was like elite.
He looked like a first-round pitcher.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I see, Facebook comments, right? Like, probably shouldn't be even talking about them on the air, but I see people like responding and stuff saying, well, what happened to the what happened to that great offensive performance from a portion of the game Friday, and of course in the regional? Well, here's what happened. Hurston Waldrop happened. This was a team that for pretty much the entire regional and for a good part of Friday's game was just spitting on sliders and curveballs that were out of the zone. They said, we're not swinging at those. And then you say, well, why are they swinging at those on Saturday? It's not that their approach changed. It's that his pitches were that good. His stuff was that good. You ever seen the overlays? They'll do it on, I think Pitching Ninja on Twitter does a fantastic job for MLB, where it shows you a hitter's view of like a breaking ball and a fastball, and it's coming in. It's on the exact same plane.
Sure.
And so he's throwing an outside. If he's throwing an outside pitch, and you saw Carolina swing at a bunch of curveballs, sliders, whatever he calls his, and then take fastballs. Well, that's because they have no concept because it's coming on the exact same plane. Is this going to break away from me, or is this going to run into me or stay more straight?
Right.
And his stuff was that good that you can't make that decision on if you're swinging or not. So that's why they were off. They were out of whack all game because he was that good. It's not that their approach changed. I think if you're Carolina, and I talked coming in about how baseball kind of evens out if you play a 3-game series of a couple of evenly matched teams. Clearly, for Carolina to have a chance to win this thing, they needed to take advantage of the opportunity on Friday. That game was very winnable. It was right there. It was right there for the taking, even with the issues, even with the obstruction or whatever, non-obstruction call. Even with all that, it was winnable. So if you play it out, they win Friday, then Waldrop shoves on Saturday. You just flush it and say, hey, anything can happen in a 1-game playoff situation going into Sunday. I thought that the biggest thing for this weekend was not winning Friday in what was a very winnable game, a game they came out on fire. They had great at-bats. Florida sort of relaxed, settled in, took your punch, and ended up winning the game. But I don't know, man. We have all the technology. We have replay. I don't understand why we can't get stuff right if we have freaking replay. Like I'm done with the whole this is not reviewable. This is reviewable. This is reviewable on Sundays, but not on Saturdays. Like what are we doing? We have people sitting in a box in Birmingham. There's nothing else to do in Birmingham anyway. So they're hanging out.
Fired.
They're hanging out in there. There needs to be an extenuating circumstance clause that, okay, this is not even typically something we would review, but we realize we might be about to screw this up. It's like phone a friend on How to Be a Millionaire. We're going to phone a friend and figure this out because we're in NCAA play and we want to get this right.
Is it AAA baseball that's using AI or not the RoboUmp for this season?
I don't know.
I think Kendall mentioned something about
Double A
it.
is using a stickier baseball. So I don't know if they spread out their different.
Maybe
tests.
like a mix of real and RoboUmp. Right? They're doing it to some degree. I know that
they did. I think the Knights had a game. It was a 1-game thing last year where the Knights were using Robo. But I know they test all that stuff at the minor league level.
And like when you watch like a Braves game on Bally Sports or whatever, they have a little box in front of the hitter where you can see exactly where the pitch lands every single time. So again, we clearly have the technology to make these kind of calls, and maybe it's just the traditionalness of having somebody behind the plate or having somebody by the bases or whatever. But in a sense, like you said, we need to be utilizing this stuff more and more to get these calls right.
Well, you can. We don't have to just stick. Trying to think of we don't have to stick the thing from iRobot behind the catcher.
Right.
Like this doesn't have to be weird. We can put a earpiece.
Have the Iron Giant standing behind first base.
Yeah, we don't have to make this weird. Like the umpire can have something in his ear just saying, "Hey, dummy, that's a strike," and then he can have his ump show
right
anyway.
Yeah. There's a way to do it. I'm sure in time it will come, but as of right now, we're still relying on the human element, and we know humans do make errors.
Yeah, they do. It's hard. I umpired 1 game when I was playing JV baseball, and I used to work at a rec department. The umpire didn't show up. They're like, "Hey, this game doesn't even count. It's a scrimmage." And they're like, "Will you umpire it?" And I was like, "Well, sure, whatever." I go out there. I'm getting cussed out by parents.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, "Guys, I'm in
the scrimmage game.
I'm in junior high. Like, why are you yelling at me?" So I get it. It's the most I would never I wouldn't umpire youth games, dude. It is a different. Like you get hammered.
Let me ask you this: which team were you accused of getting paid by more?
What do you mean?
Because the parents the other team's paying you, right?
Yeah, well, I still can see this one woman yelling at me. She was.
Oh, this is really stuck for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, "Are y'all serious?"
I would rather umpire a college game with all the fanatics than a youth game.
Oh yeah,
and I'm dead serious.
Forget that.
My dad got thrown out of one of my games one time for saying something to an umpire.
Yeah, I mean,
that's awesome.
It happens. So I don't know. I know it's hard, and we're sitting here. This sucks. We're talking about umpires on a sports show. Like I hate this. And the whole time I was watching, I was like, I bet you Twitter is just talking about the officiating. Sure enough, that's all it was. But it sucks to be talking about sports, and that's the story.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I get it. Like, even the insurance run that Florida tacked on at the end, you're sitting there like, this Proctor kid is up there throwing, I thought, the ball too well. Like, he's throwing the ball right down the middle. I'm like, dude, you might want to, find some corners here, or they're going to hit the ball to the moon. And they're still squeezing him. I'm like, what is going on?
Didn't he strike out a batter twice?
I mean,
in the same at bat, I think, but it was like a walk.
Yeah, it's
or a base
ridiculous.
hit.
Yes, I don't know, man. We're talking about this.
It is a shame. It's a shame.
We'll dive into the specifics of the game a little bit more.
We got to talk a lot of recruiting, though, Tyler. Like, we got a bunch.
It's a busy hour.
Hey,
I trust me.
I've noticed Tyler will squeeze me on recruiting. Last week, I was like, we got to talk about some recruiting, Tyler. He'll put it at the final 2 minutes of the segment.
It's a power hour.
Yeah.
Or power minute.
I don't think Tyler likes recruiting talk.
We got to fit in everything we got to talk about.
Yeah.
And baseball's a big story.
We got to talk about Meatball Monday here in a second.
We do. And in fact, that'll come on in about 5 seconds.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. 107.5, The Game.
Last night, guys, family sitting around trying to figure out what to do for dinner. My oldest daughter becomes convinced that she must have Firehouse Subs and that she wants the meatball sub. Now, Meatball Monday is not until, of course, today. Meatball Monday, it was a Sunday night, but like a good dad, I went and got her a meatball sub. And you know how I ordered it? Right through the Firehouse Subs app. You can download it. You can earn yourself points towards your purchase, just like the Rapid Rescue online at firehousesubs.com. But through the app, you can find the closest location near you. It was right down the road from us.
Was it waiting on the shelf for you when you got there?
It was waiting on the shelf. I walked in. It was even earlier than the promised time. Hot, ready. It was delicious. Firehouse Subs, bringing families together, making me look like a good dad.
Do you know what the Sunday sub of the day is? We never get to talk about it on here. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't. What is it?
Italian.
One of the best.
$7.99.
Yep. $7.99 for a medium, $5.99 for a small. Get yourself the medium. You can get that every day of the week. There's a sub of the day at Firehouse Subs. Today is Meatball Monday, so do like my oldest daughter. Get yourself a meatball sub from Firehouse Subs. Firehousesubs.com, Rapid Rescue.
All right, I'll call an audible, and we will hit recruiting up next. The Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game.
As a parent, no 2 days are ever the same. At Care.com, you can find trusted and flexible sitters to help manage your family's ever-changing schedule. Care.com can even help you out with housekeepers, dog walkers, senior caregivers, and more, so you can find care for all you love. And 100% of caregivers who use Care.com have been background checked with CareCheck, a key first step in hiring confidently. To get the help you need to make it all work, sign up now and find a great sitter at Care.com.
Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Presented by Firehouse Subs. Founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head. On your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. Quickly want to remind everyone about the craft beer passport on 1075thegame.com. Just click on the Sweet Deals tab and buy yourself the craft beer passport for $99. It's a $285 value, good at over 15 locations here in the Columbia area. Again, 1075thegame.com. Click on Sweet Deals for the craft beer passport. On Friday, Wes was out at the Shane Beamer football camp. We were talking about everything going on out there and the big recruiting weekend that was coming up, as a lot of guys, I believe 11 in total, were on campus for visits. And as Wes and I were talking about on Friday, these guys from all over the country, not just, I don't believe anybody was from the state of South Carolina for this past weekend, correct?
Yeah, it was kind of odd. Honestly, that it doesn't really normally play out like that. But yeah, 11 official visitors. All 11 made it in. We actually have reactions. We have reactions up on Gamecock Central from 9 of them. We have a reaction from a 10th as well that will go up today. So, hey, 10 out of the 11. Not bad at all, Chris.
Okay, right.
But I think we're kind of sorting through. I think it's going to be interesting, Chris. All these guys, it seems like, are in different places in their recruitment. Some of them, you look at, let's take an easy one. Mason Love, the punter, I know you talked to him. he officially landed a scholarship offer from South Carolina, has pretty much shut it down, I think, as far as his recruitment goes. You put in a prediction for the Gamecocks there. That certainly feels like one that is trending to the Gamecocks. You look at somebody like Matthew Fuller, the running back from Georgia. That one, he didn't really hold back, saying, South Carolina's building something different and he might want to be a part of it, paraphrasing here. There are some battles here that aren't quite as heavily contested, and I would say he's one of them. Then you start to look at some of the other guys, some of the more highly rated guys in that bunch, like a Cam McKell, Malcolm Ziegler, Nasir Johnson, and, these are guys who are going to kind of play the process out, I think. So I think there's maybe some, if we kind of try to sort through this and give people a little idea of what to expect, do you think we can kind of almost split it into a couple of categories or maybe even 3 different categories and start to try to give people some context of what to expect is next with this group?
Yeah, I think you have some tiers to it. I think probably 3. It makes sense. So I think you have, by the way, only one committed visitor this weekend. That was Michael Smith. So he was able to just kind of turn his attention to helping out recruiting a little bit. And from what he said, from what we've heard, he did that. But the other 10 guys, all uncommitted. And like you said, different levels to those. So I think you've got a guy like Mason Love. I probably throw Matthew Fuller into that mix, the running back from Georgia, as guys that seem pretty close to ending the process in general from what they've said and the indications, but also strong leans to South Carolina, right? So I think
I'm going to throw Fred Johnson into that too.
That's very fair. Fred Johnson, the linebacker from Virginia, not a super highly rated guy, but I saw that kid on June 2nd, the very first camp day, Wes, and immediately go, who is that? Because he's 6'3", 225. His profile originally listed him at 195, so he's put in a
195 receiver.
195 receiver, 6'3", 225, outside linebacker type, ran in the 4.5 range in the 40. Short
nice shuttle as well,
Yeah, 4.2 in the 5.10.5 shuttle. And that one has really kind of quickly accelerated. I know from what he told you, it looks like he's getting towards the end of the process. Yeah. South Carolina seems to be in good shape. So I think you take that kind of tier. Then you have another tier of guys that have been on the board for a while, and this was not their first visit. So like Cam McKell from Georgia, I think would be one that's in that mix. Who else is in that one?
I would say maybe Malcolm Ziegler.
Not quite on campus.
Not quite a guy you would say they've been in on for like a year, like you would say with some of the 2024 guys. But I was looking back. I believe this was actually his 3rd visit to campus, and because I think he came to a spring practice. I know he was slated to, and I know he was at the spring game.
Yep.
So spring game, and then now back on campus. Dude, I'll tell you what. I always I tell fans not to really honestly read too far into comments from players. Like I think when you and I are like gathering information, that goes much further than reading into a quote or something. I will say this though, Chris and I kind of split up these interviews. Talking to Malcolm Ziegler, and maybe he's just a happy kid, I don't know, but talking to him, like the way he talked about South Carolina, it felt to me like they made a major move with him as well. And I don't necessarily have the info to back that up because other than like this on the record interview, he's been pretty close to the vest about his actual recruiting process. And he's got Notre Dame coming up. That's actually... I think he's going on down there a little bit early. It's like this coming weekend, but it's going to be like starting Thursday. And then he has UNC, which of course, is going to try to put a fence around the state like they always try to do. So it's a battle. And that's the other thing I would say with some of these other guys as we're categorizing it. These are some big boy recruiting battles. Ziegler sort of falls in that category. But I think it's going to be fascinating for me to see how does the DB board sort of play out? you go back to last week, you got a kid in Louis Solomon. He's a four-star athlete, but defensive back for South Carolina. It's Florida State and South Carolina right now seem to be the top two. I think he maybe visited Texas A&M. So big boy battle, but Carolina's right in it. Cam Michael coming into this weekend, Georgia was considered the favorite. Gamecocks make their push this weekend. Ziegler, like I said. So you got some guys that are taking other visits and going to sort of let the process play out. And with them, it's really, it's hard to project guys like that when you don't really know what the reaction is going to be to these other official visits.
Yeah, and you've got other visits coming up, right? That's key. I mean, you can feel pretty good about a guy, but then you know, hey, they're going to this place or that place to close out the month of June. And even if their decision's around the corner going into their football season, if they want to make a preseason decision, and even if you feel really, really good about how your visit went, you know that you still have some other ones that are going to have a chance to measure up to it. I know we have one more tier to get to.
We'll get to that tier on the other side as we continue to talk about a busy recruiting weekend for the Gamecocks on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. 107.5 The Game.
Hey, if you're a small business owner in the Midlands, you obviously need several things to be successful. And when you think about everything you need to help your business succeed, it's always things like happy customers, steady cash flow, and a good overall plan. But something that you also need is an insurance agent that gets you, someone who's been in your shoes. And that is the case for State Farm agent Amy Mason-Cup. She also runs a small business here in the Midlands, right down the road off of I-26, 612 St. Andrews Road, Suite 4 in Columbia. That is Ashland Park Plaza, I-26 at St. Andrews. And Amy Mason-Cup State Farm can make it easy to choose the right protection at the right price for your business, because one thing you don't need to stress about is your business insurance. So a couple ways you can get in contact with Amy. Visit her website, amymasoncup.com. That's Amy, MASINCUPP.com, or you can give her a call, 803-772-5554. I use Amy for my family's personal insurance. She can help you with that. She can also help you with your business insurance. Whatever your needs are, she and State Farm have you covered. With her experience and knowledgeable team, they can give you a personalized quote to meet your needs and help you save. Again, that's Amy Mason-Cup, State Farm, 803-772-5554, or amymasoncup.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
More recruiting with Tyler, West, and Chris on 107.5 The Game after this.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Presented by Firehouse Subs. Founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, Wes, and Chris along with you. Going to jump back into recruiting in just a second. I want to let you know about the SEC scheduling contest going on right now on 1075thegame.com. Of course, the SEC set to release every team's 8 opponents for the 2024 season coming up on Wednesday night on the SEC network. But if you go to 1075thegame.com right now, and if you can correctly pick South Carolina's 8 opponents for 2024, you'll win tickets to the home opener against Furman and a 1075 The Game prize pack. Qualifying ends Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Don't miss your chance in the 2024 SEC scheduling contest on 1075thegame.com and the 1075 The Game app. Chris, right before the break there, you mentioned that there was another tier to what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, I think, the first one that we went through was guys that, seem pretty close to a decision, and also South Carolina seems in pretty good shape for. Then you have the second tier of guys that are, targets that South Carolina probably advanced with, that, they've been on campus before. South Carolina's in the mix, but they've got some other visits to take. It's kind of difficult to peg which direction it may go, but I think there's another tier now to Wes, in that there were a lot of guys, several guys on campus out of those 11 this weekend that I think this was their first visit, just in general, to campus. I mean, You look at a guy like Quintavious Johnson. He was, I wrote this morning on Gamecock Central, maybe the most intriguing one to me, and there were several really intriguing prospects on campus. One of the reasons for that designation, I think, is the type of player that he is. You know, he was a former high school quarterback who just started playing defensive end a couple years ago, and so now he's gone from a 6'4", 225 quarterback to a 6'4", 250-pound defensive end, and he looks the part. You know, he looks like an SEC defensive end, and now finds himself with offers from South Carolina and Georgia and Tennessee. So first visit to Columbia, it seemed to go extremely well based on the feedback we got from him and some others we talked to, but he's in that category now of, okay, well, this is first visit. Let's see where it goes, because he's going to Georgia and Tennessee the next couple weekends.
Yeah, I kind of like this kid, Chris, and I kind of like where South Carolina stands, too. Like, you know, I think anytime a guy is taking their first official visit, you do sort of got to take that into context when you're kind of trying to project things out. And you're not going to take an official visit to South Carolina and not just be blown away, especially if it's your first time ever being there. And he's been sort of low-key about the process. A lot of these guys, Chris, are players that South Carolina maybe offered during that May evaluation period or still a little bit fresh into the recruiting process. And, you know, we'll see how things play out. Obviously, if you have Georgia involved, which I think, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, but doesn't it feel like Georgia's involved with every defensive lineman, defensive end, edge rush, whatever guy in the entire Southeast? They are. They can't take them all. So clearly, if he's got an OV set to Georgia, which he does, clearly they like him. But, you know, I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Here's another battle with Tennessee. It seems like South Carolina and Tennessee are seeing each other on the trail more and more. But I feel like if it was like today, if he was like, I'm making my decision, that this is someone who very easily could be in South Carolina's class, is what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes guys visit, and even if it's an official visit, we're kind of like, we'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe safe to say either he or Ogboko would be maybe in the category of guys that felt like South Carolina probably made a big move with, in that they weren't heavily involved before, but now they kind of are.
Yeah, that's fair. Ogboko is Nnamdi Ogboko from South Garner in North Carolina. 6'4", 335, so different position. He's an interior guy. And this was his first visit, right, to South Carolina?
See, he may have taken one in the spring.
May have snuck
before
through
he got offered, or either he got offered on campus. But
first, probably real in-depth.
Yeah, and even if he did visit in the spring was his first visit, if it happened. So not a guy that they've been, recruiting for a year.
Hasn't been on the radar for two. We've talked a lot about some of the guys in the 2024 class that are committed, and these are guys that South Carolina's been recruiting for 3 years. And some of these other ones, Quintavious Johnson, Nnamdi Ogboko, they have not been. It's been kind of later, but nonetheless made big moves for them. And so Ogboko also, Wes, has some other visits coming up. Florida this coming weekend. We'll get an official from him. They're probably going to be a pretty significant factor. And then maybe another trip towards the end of the month, the June 23rd weekend. Several, schools still in the mix for him, but I think South Carolina now has a seat at the table, you could say.
Yeah, and good-looking kid, by all indications, just kind of physically. Let's see, who else have we not talked about? I feel like a guy like Nasir Johnson is one you sort of look at where you say, obviously it went well this weekend, but doesn't necessarily feel like South Carolina is as well-positioned with him as maybe some of these other guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Actually told me shortly after the visit wrapped that Florida's his leader, and he's going to Florida next weekend. And so that wouldn't really bode that well. I mean, I don't think he had a negative trip at all. In fact, he really liked the trip, and we've heard from him and others that he really liked the trip. But right now, Florida in the lead. Caleb Harris is another. He's a defensive back out of Alabama. Another one that has been on the radar for a bit, probably longer than we really realized.
That we picked up on?
Yeah, we didn't pick up as much on that one. He was a there were several guys, probably 8, 9, that we were really tracking as, okay, these guys are going to be in town this past weekend. Harris came up a little bit later on our radar, but we actually found out yesterday he's someone that Torian Gray, South Carolina's defensive backs coach, has been recruiting for a while. He's been communicating with them. They talk a good bit. Torian Gray went down in the spring, saw Caleb Harris at his high school in Alabama, Thompson in Alabaster, Alabama, and liked what he saw and decided he wanted to bring him in on a visit. So now he's another guy on that defensive backboard. Again, you made the point earlier, kind of hard to see how it's going to shake out with the DB board, but he's one that I think now you put in that mix. But this was his very first look at South Carolina, and he seemed to really like what he saw.
Well, there's one thing I'm learning, Chris. Torian Gray moves in silence a little bit. Like he kind of
stealth.
He just kind of does his thing, though. And next thing you know, they got like 100 defensive backs visiting in the summer, and you're like, wait, where did this guy come from? And, you kind of try to get a feel for how that's going to play out. There are some elite guys that are on the board at defensive back, and then there's some guys that I think are solid players, at least as far as the rankings go, that it feels like they're in on. We'll see who they really push for, who they don't. It does seem like Caleb Harris is a guy they want. Like, he is a take for them from what we've heard. You look at a guy like last week, Chasen Johnson committing to Pitt this week. Don't know, kind of reading through the lines there, don't know if South Carolina necessarily pushed for him. And another quick note here, Chris, I don't know if you saw this, but I'm just seeing this. Fred Johnson actually officially has a ranking on On3 as well. Ooh. He initially, again, was listed as a 6'3", 195-pound linebacker, and again, now a 6'3.5", 225. He was listed as a wide receiver. Now he's listed as a linebacker, which player is being recruited, and he has been rated a 3-star 88 by On3 and a 3-star 89 by 24/7 Sports, and that means he essentially is a mid to high 3-star, number 487 overall prospect in the country when you average them together, which, hey, for a guy who we didn't know anything about 2 weeks ago, that would actually be a pretty solid pickup, I think, for South Carolina if they can close this out. And one thing Fred Johnson mentioned, he's like, man, ever since that South Carolina offer, he's like, it's gotten crazy because so many other schools are trying to jump in, but it really feels like South Carolina may be able to just close this thing on out and be a solid pickup for them.
We'll come back on the other side, wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Tyler, West, and Chris on 107.5 The Game.
Hour 107.5 The Game.
Hey guys, if you're looking for that special gift for that special graduate in your life, look no further than our friends at Gold Line Framing in West Columbia. Owner Kendall Walsh and manager Joni James will take care of any and all of your custom framing needs. That's from diplomas to original artwork, canvases, jerseys, and flags. Basically, if it can be framed, they can frame it for you. They've been in business for over 20 years. You can head on over to 511 12th Street, West Columbia. Check out their art gallery, home decor, furniture, and gift items in store. If you have any questions, give them a call, 803-739-1337. They're open Tuesday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and then on Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. as well. Also, you can give them a follow on Instagram. That's at Goldline Framing SC. Again, that is Goldline Framing. Any and all of your custom framing needs, diplomas, artwork, canvases, jerseys, flags, they can do it. Goldline Framing, check them out.
Wrapping up today's edition of the show on the other side, 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Presented by Firehouse Subs. Founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head. On your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. A few more minutes to go here. Tyler, Wes, and Chris, along with you for turning things over to the halftime show with Jay and Terry. You guys have mentioned it the past 2 Fridays. You've each been out at the Shane Beamer football camps. The first 2 were the standard mini camps. You're going to have another one coming up at the end of this week as well. But later on this week, you're also going to have the lineman camp starting on Thursday, the 15th, and then continuing on Friday, the 16th. So even more going on as far as these camps go later on this week.
More importantly, Chris, Tyler is holding out on us, man.
Oh, no.
Tyler, it's your birthday, dude.
It is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you?
27.
It's a good age, man.
So I had this conversation with Colin earlier this morning that when it comes to birthdays, I never like to be the person that like tells people,
I'm
like,
with
hey,
you.
It's my birthday.
Hey, it's my birthday. Tell me happy birthday.
Or like the week before, like, hey guys, Monday, it's my birthday. Because then you place a level of expectation like, okay, now I have to get this person something or I have to do something for this person. So I always just like hope people find out on their own so I don't have to be the one to tell them, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. Well, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do. What's your favorite cake or is there a go-to different dessert for
the wife made cupcakes.
Okay, what flavor?
Just like the yellow cake with like chocolate icing. I'm pretty simple. It doesn't take a lot to please me.
All right, if you said yellow cake, white icing, I was going to be like, throw those away.
She made some of those too, but I if I had to choose between the two, I go with chocolate.
Okay, we'll give. You should have brought those in and gave away the white icing ones to everyone and kept the chocolate. The if it's well done, the yellow cake with some chocolate icing is like chef's kiss.
Undefeated.
Those are good.
Yes.
We thought about, sorry, we won't sing to you on the air. We'll spare.
Thank you.
You
spare
actually,
everyone.
Apparently, we have not heard yet, but apparently you are the best singer, so I guess you can sing to yourself.
Where did that come from?
Well, the karaoke thing from a while back. You did a song. You did a happy birthday song, too, didn't you?
Yeah. We should have played him singing
with alternately
happy birthday to himself.
Congrats, Tyler. Happy birthday.
Hey, with AI, anything's possible now, right?
Very, very true. So the 6 people who are still listening, we won't run them off by singing.
Yeah, we will not run them off. We will actually, let's answer for his birthday present. We will answer Tyler's question. Yes, so it's busy, Tyler, because you've got official visits, you've got camps, you got unofficial visits, like all sandwiched together. How about this date, Wes? June 16th.
I don't want to think about it.
You know what I'm going? Where I'm going with this one.
They got what? O-line, D-line, and mini camp
and regular camp. So there's an O-line, D-line camp. Mini camp is what you meant by the regular.
Yeah, right.
But add to that, there's also the 7-on-7 camp. So we got 3 different camps going concurrently. So we'll be out there about 8 a.m. till about 8 p.m. They're actually doing, I kind of like this, a night camp, like into the night.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's starting in the afternoon, like 3:30 or so, and going until like 8. So
concurrently is a good word, by the way.
Word of the day. So we don't have a handle. Well, we have a few guys that we know will be in there. We'll know a little bit closer to time. And there's always guys where you show up on the camp day. Fred Johnson, who we were talking about earlier, just took an official visit this past weekend, has an offer now. Great example. No clue he was going to be there. He's there, tests well, gets an offer. Next weekend, he's taking an official visit. So you see those types of things happen during camp season.
Well, and one we do know about for later this week would be Sterling Sanders, defensive lineman out of Blythewood. I talked about him on the show a little bit last week while Chris was floating in the sea. But I think the guy has a great shot to be the next in-state prospect to have a South Carolina offer added to his profile. So that'll be a guy to keep an eye on. Took an unofficial visit last week to get the lay of the land, sort of. It's going to work out for Travian Robertson at the end of this week. If he checks the boxes there, I think he's got a great shot to get an offer. And, Chris, for those who sort of don't follow it, it makes sense to do your O-line, D-line camp and your 7-on-7 the same day, I think, because then if you bring a school in, let's say South Point, I think they're competing one of the days. You bring in South Point, let's say South Point has a defensive line prospect and they have a defensive back prospect. You can say, hey, coach, bring all your guys, and then obviously 7-on-7 does not include offensive lineman or defensive lineman. So you go to the stadium, your O-line, D-line guys have something to do. They start a little bit earlier, and you knock that out, and then your skill guys can do the 7-on-7. So there's something to do for everybody. So I do think it makes a lot of sense to do it like that. Although I'll say, man, give credit to all those like sort of quote off the field workers that make all this possible. Chris and I see it every single year. They bust their tails on camp days, but even more so on O-line, D-line, plus 7-on-7, plus camp days. I mean, thankless job, I think, as far as the public goes. But all those guys and girls do a fantastic job.
All right, that'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Back at it tomorrow. Halftime show with Jane Terry. Coming up next on 107.5 The Game.
Did you know if you pay your nanny or sitter more than $2,400 a year or $100 a week, you owe taxes? Let Care.com Home Pay help you get the tax savings your family qualifies for, up to $2,500 a year. Get your first month free at homepay.com with the code FREEMONTH2022.